Hello there people of the internet, CJ the Prop Maker back again with another video. Today I'm coming at you with a video that I haven't done in a while, not since I did the review of a budget lightsaber, a rip-off lightsaber I should say, that I got off Temu and compared it to my wonderful Saber's Defender lightsaber. Today I'm back at it again with another lightsaber review. It's a video that I've been wanting to make for a while. I just never got around to it, so I figured right now I would get on and do it. So here it is. I got another lightsaber. In fact, I got two of them, as is my tradition. And technically it's the same style of hilt with one difference, but it's complicated. Allow me to explain. So I recently became acquainted with the premier lightsaber manufacturing company of my home country, South Africa, and that company is Sabervault. Now, they have an impressive range of products. They have replica lightsabers from the movies, they have RGB Pro sabers, and they have NeoPixel sabers. Now, I've got nothing against NeoPixel, but it's just not my style, so of course I went RGB. And more specifically, I asked them to send me a electronic chassis, a saber chassis, which is basically the electronics that you would find inside of a hilt, because I wanted to switch out one of my Aegis sabers. For those of you who don't know, I only paid for two, but I wound up getting four instead. Long story. I fancied a switch, so I messaged them and I asked them, do you sell your electronics separately from your saber hilts? And they said, yes, we do. So they sent me a pair of saber chassis, and I fit them into a pair of my Saber's Defenders. But more fool me for expecting different companies' lightsaber chassis to fit perfectly inside another company's hilt. So there was a big problem with the way I did it, and you can see the electronics are sticking out a little bit here, which made it a bit of a problem when it came to closing the saber. So I wound up ordering these, which attaches to the coupler or pommel, or whatever you want to, and onto the back, a Convatec ring, which is something that the Saber's Defender was lacking, which made carrying it a bit of a hassle. Like I had to be holding it the whole time, or else I had to fashion some kind of holster for it or stick it in my belt, whereas this, I can just hang on my belt like a real Jedi. No problem. But more to the point, the chassis, the electronic chassis inside of this saber now is one of the Sabervault chassis, and it is a considerable upgrade in some areas. I will get into things I liked about it and things that I didn't like about it in a second, but for the moment I'm just going to reacquaint you with my Saber's Defender. Let me turn it back on and reacquaint you with it. All too familiar to us that have been with the channel for a while. So you can imagine my surprise when I turned on this baby and I got a much different response.
Power on.
As you can see, that is considerably louder. So let me turn this one on. That's pretty cool, I would say. But there are some things that I like and things that I don't like, and we'll get into those in a second. First off, to remind you how the Aegis sabers did when it came to my review criteria. So, first off, for service, Aegis sabers got a 10 out of 10. Considering that Aegis sabers is in Hurricane, Utah, and I'm in South Africa, and there's an 8-hour time difference between us, it is very impressive that he sometimes replied to my messages within the hour, sometimes within 3 hours, sometimes within however many. He always replied, and he was always willing to answer my questions. So for service, Aegis sabers got a 10 out of 10. For price, Aegis sabers at the time, again, before smooth swing was a very big thing among saber companies, where I was going for function over form and just wanted a lightsaber. The price they were asking for it, I forget what it is at this point, but the price was not bad. It got a 9.5 out of 10. For lighting and light effects, the Aegis Saber's Defender got an 8 out of 10. Sound and sound effects, the Aegis Saber's also got an 8 out of 10. For customization, it got a 6 out of 10 because, yes, you can choose your blade color, and it has the pommel that you can screw off, and you can connect two of them, and it has the connector built in. But that being said, the hilt itself is very plain. So, with that in mind, I gave, with the limitations of customization and the fact that you could choose your hilt color as well, I chose silver, but it also comes in gunmetal, gold, blue, red, and green, if memory serves correctly. And yeah, so with that in mind, the fact that you can choose your hilt color, the coupler, the fact that you can customize your blade color, the fact that you can customize your sound font, your blade stability, with 6 sound fonts to choose from, and 3 blade stabilities to choose from. Those features gave the Aegis Sabers a 6 out of 10. I would have given it higher, but the hilt is very plain. A very simple design, a very effective design, which is why I chose it ultimately. But because it's not very special looking, not that it has to be, but you know, I gave it a 6 out of 10. And for additional features, the Aegis Saber's got a 6 out of 10 as well. It didn't have much in terms of additional features. The most it had going for it was that the blade had a distribution filter in the middle of it, had a bullet-shaped tip for that kind of effect, and it had the coupler. In terms of additional features, the Aegis Saber's Defender also came with these neat little metal cards that had the instructions on them. Pretty cool. I gave it a 6 out of 10. What do I think about the Sabervault version? What are my thoughts on the Sabervault electronics as a whole? Now, one thing I did notice while scrolling on Sabervault is that there was a lightsaber on sabervault.com that bears a striking resemblance to the Aegis Saber's Defender, and in fact Sabervault has a Defender of their own, which is basically this hilt design but black. But that being said, they have a lightsaber of this exact design, and they call it the Ares. So technically, when I took the Aegis Saber's electronics out of this hilt and put the Sabervault electronics in, I effectively turned this one into an Ares lightsaber. Technically, make of that what you will. So, for service, I gave Sabervault a 10 out of 10. Because it is a South Africa-based company in my home country, I was able to contact them without much trouble, and they got back to me usually within the same day. Usually I had to wait a day because reasons, but they were always willing to answer my questions and always answered promptly. So for that reason, I can give Sabervault a 10 out of 10 for service. For price, what you are getting, and we'll get into that just now, but for price, what you are getting I have to say 10 out of 10 for that. You cannot get better than this for the price in my country without paying import tax and whatever. So for that reason, I'm giving Sabervault for price a 10 out of 10. Lighting / light effects. Now, let me turn the light off here, and we'll compare it. We'll compare the Sabervault to my Aegis sabers.
Power on.
As you can see, pretty close. The Sabervault just has it beat. You saw that my Aegis sabers, it has blaster deflection, light effects, and it has a lockup. And so does the Sabervault. Furthermore, just like the Aegis Saber's Defender, you can choose your blade stability. So, again, for comparison, let me bring it up here.
Pulse.
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 So you can see the Aegis Saber's Defender is a bit more flickery. I'm just gonna turn that off so you can see. No, turn off. You can see with the Sabervault, it's less flickery but more rhythmic, I guess you could say. Really is pulsing. And then the other mode,
Unstable.
unstable. Now,
Stable.
now let's compare the unstable mode. This is the Aegis Saber's Defender. Ooh, which is a very aggressive flickering. Don't know if you can see this well, but... And now let's compare that to the Sabervault. Whoa! Epilepsy warning. Like, you can't really see it very well on camera, but in person, this is okay, let's turn that off. Ah. So I don't know how well you could see that, but those were some really aggressive flickers. So, yeah. Basically, if you want a Kylo Ren style lightsaber, that's the light effect you would use.
Steady.
And back to steady. So, those are the different light effects that the Sabervault saber has. With that in mind, I'm going to give lighting / light effects a 10 out of 10. Definitely an improvement over the Defender. I guess since I bought the Defender model all those years ago, when did I buy this? It was 2020. I guess since I bought the Aegis Saber's Defender back in 2020, lightsaber technology has just come very far in the last 5 years. Customization. Now, in terms of customization, the Sabervault saber has a lot of features. It has RGB, so you can change the color. It has 9 different sound fonts, which is very nice, as opposed to only 6 for the Defender. And again, it has the blade stability, so you can basically do with it what you will. However, this is where I have to give the saber some down points. Like, I am so tempted to give the customization a 10 out of 10, except there are some things that need to be discussed. First off, at Sabervault, if you're going to buy a lightsaber, you need to settle on a design that you want, because unfortunately Sabervault does not sell individual saber accessories or empty hilts, so they don't really cater to the type of guys who like to mix and match saber parts and like swap out this emitter for another one or swap out this pommel for a different one. They don't really do that kind of thing. They sell a saber, this is what it looks like, it has these amount of features, do with that what you will. They do sell Convertech clips, like this one here, so if you want to add that to your saber, then you can. Another customization issue that I have is that when it comes to the RGB-ness of the saber, there is a problem with it. The problem is that it's harder to control than the Aegis Saber's Defender. What am I talking about? Well, if I turn on the Defender, now watch. Hold down the button for 2 flashes and then release and hold again. And I'm cycling through the colors. Keep in mind that I have to keep holding down the button whilst I'm cycling. And once I reach the color that I want, I just release and tap. And boom. Simple as that. Whereas with the Sabervault saber, hold down for 2 flashes, and now it's auto-cycling through the colors. Now, on the one hand, that's a nice feature to have, because it means I don't have to hold down the button. But on the other hand, it means I don't have as much control over the cycling as I used to with the Aegis Saber's Defender. Like, I want to turn it red, but now I've gone and made it because my instincts were just that millisecond late, it's gone past red and now it's really light pink. Let me try again. Now, technically it's red, but it's not as red as it could be. I've seen how red this lightsaber blade can be. Yeah, you get my point. It's harder to control. I can't just get it back to red. I can't seem to get it to just a straight red color. I always wind up going just too soon or just too late. Whereas, yeah, like, I'm focusing very hard, I want it to be red. Too late. Yeah, so in terms of control...
Surf song. No song.
So yeah, in terms of control, I would have to say I prefer the Aegis Saber's Defender version because, yes, it means I have to hold down the button, but that just means that when it gets to the color I want it to be, I can just release the button and it'll stop there and I just tap the button to confirm. Like, for example, here, I want the blade to be white, so it keep holding it down, white, release, tap, confirmed. Whereas with this one, let's try again. Auto scroll, got my thumb over the button, I want red. Again, like slightly too late, and now I've got pink. So yeah, that's my one major issue with the Sabervault saber. The auto cycling on the color changing is a bit of a problem. It's harder to control because like you've got to be like pinpoint accurate with your timing on that button tap, or else you go too far and you get like not the color you want. Moving on to sound and sound effects. For sound, the Aegis Saber's got an 8 out of 10. It's on mute at the moment, let me fix that. For sound, the Aegis Saber's got a 8 out of 10. It's not the best sound, but you do get 3 sound modes: mute, low sound, and high sound. And as I said before, and I'll show you again, the mute is indeed that, it's mute. The saber makes no sound whatsoever.
Loud sound.
Loud sound. Not the loudest, I will admit, but still pretty loud.
Soft sound.
Soft sound. Still pretty good. Whereas with the Sabervault, this thing is loud. I don't know if you heard before, but it is loud.
Volume high.
You heard how loud it is. That's on the loudest setting.
Volume low.
The low volume mode is still pretty loud. I believe the low volume mode on the Sabervault saber is as loud as the loud sound version on the Aegis sabers.
Mute.
Now, with the mute, for some reason in certain sound fonts, when I go swinging the saber around in mute mode, I hear the speaker make a little clicking noise, which suggests that it wants to make noise, but like, yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but it just suggests that the electronics of the Sabervault are not really designed for mute, which I get it. I mean, if you have a lightsaber, you kind of want it to make the lightsaber noise, unless you're one of those guys who goes after stunt sabers. But that's not what I did, so I can't really complain that much that the electronics are not designed to be muted. But then again, if you have the mute function, you would expect it to work as advertised. You would expect it to mute the electronics. You wouldn't expect it to make any noise whatsoever. So, and on top of that, there are some sounds on the saber.
Volume high. Volume low.
There are some sounds on the saber that I don't like. For instance, when it comes to blaster deflection, one second. When it comes to blaster deflection, I like when the blaster deflection is one shot deflection per press of the button. If you don't remember, you trigger the blaster deflection by tapping the button. Pretty straightforward. But with the Sabervault electronics, it's not so simple, because for some reason they added in these multiple shot things here. Like, listen, I only pressed the button once, why am I getting 3 shot sounds? Yeah, not sure I quite like that. So, make of that what you will, but not my style, really. Also, there is another issue. So this sound font I've got it in at the moment is the Dark Lord Order, which we'll get into that just now, but it's obviously Darth Vader. And why do I say obviously? Well, because listen to this.
Such hatred.
There's the problem. Turned on the Darth Vader sound font, and then right out of nowhere I hear sounds of Luke Skywalker falling down a flight of stairs, the sounds of Darth Vader taunting me, saying I have such hatred, and I do have such hatred, because why is that a feature? Why is Darth Vader's voice coming out of my lightsaber? I don't want voices coming out of my lightsaber. If I want to quote Darth Vader, I'll do it myself. Like, it's a lightsaber. I want it to make lightsaber noises and blaster deflection noises, not sound bites of people's voices. So yeah, that's a major letdown for me, in terms of everything else I've seen. I don't know why that's an issue, why that's a problem, and also the multiple deflection, like the multiple shots in the blaster deflection. Like, I prefer like keeping it simple with that kind of thing. One button press, one shot deflected. Now you could just say that those other rapid shots are just missing me, which is understandable. I guess the multiple shots aren't that big a deal, but those voice samples, no, that just ruins it for me. What's more, there are some sound effects on this saber that don't make much sense to me. Like, this sound font here is the Dark Empress, which is obviously Dark Rey from The Last Jedi, and it sounds pretty cool until you go to the blaster deflection sounds. Like, what on earth was that? Fairly good. What is that? Am I deflecting a flock of bats? Like, what even was that supposed to be? So yeah, for sound and sound effects, I really want to give the Sabervault saber a better score for sound and sound effects. But with those unnecessary sounds, it just takes it down a peg for me. So I really can't give it a score like above 8 out of 10, which is exactly the same that the Aegis Saber's Defender got. Yes, the sound quality is technically better, and there is more variety of sounds, but some of the sounds are just straight pointless, which brings it down for me. So For sound and sound effects, I give the Sabervault Electronics an 8 out of 10. On top of that, the different sound fonts that you can pick are pretty vague in their titles. Some of them are easy enough to figure out, but most of them I'm struggling to figure out who this character is meant to be. With the Aegis Saber's Defender, it's easy enough. Like if I select a sound font,
I've been waiting for this day for a long time.
that's Kylo Ren's voice, so this is obviously the Kylo Ren sound font.
You have something I want.
Yeah, that's Moff Gideon, so this is obviously the Darksaber.
I'm Cal Kestis.
Cal Kestis. Ben Solo.
That lightsaber was Luke's.
That lightsaber was Luke's, so this is the Anakin/Luke sound font.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
That's obviously Darth Vader's voice, so this is obviously the Darth Vader sound font. When it comes to the Sabervault saber, on the other hand, sound fonts are not as obvious.
Wanderer.
Wanderer. Now, who's that supposed to be? Listen. I'm not quite sure who it might be. I've had some hints that it might be Mace Windu, given the fact that the blade turns purple, but I don't know.
The Knight.
The Knight. Now, this one is Kylo Ren. I figured that out because, yeah, the blade is red and it's flickering aggressively, and there's no mistaking that sound font anywhere. So that one was fairly easy, but others not so much.
The Assassin.
And that's another problem. Sometimes the ignition sound on this assassin filter won't play. Like, what's the problem with that? That time it did, but the first time, nothing. Judging from the way this one swings about, I'm assuming that that was Darth Maul.
The Dark Sword.
The Dark Sword, that one's obviously the Darksaber.
New Horizon.
New Horizon, again, don't know who that's supposed to be. I'm assuming it's Rey, because Rey's has a very particular sounding lightsaber, and when the blade turns yellow when I'm on this filter, so I'm assuming that this is Rey's yellow lightsaber. I don't know. Could be.
The Chosen.
The Chosen, again, I don't know if that's meant to be Anakin or Luke. There's not much difference between the two of their sabers, but could be either.
Truly Lost.
Truly Lost, I don't know who this is meant to be. I thought it was Kylo Ren at first, but no, we've already had a Kylo Ren, so whose is this meant to be?
Double Agent.
Double Agent. I only know of one double agent in Star Wars history, and that's Count Dooku, so I'm assuming this is him. has a very interesting sound, I'll give it that.
The princess.
The princess. I'm assuming this is Princess Leia.
Fallen apprentice magenta.
Fallen apprentice magenta. Again, I don't know who this is meant to be. By the fallen apprentice, I'm guessing it's Cal Kestis.
The Dark Lord Order.
And we're back to Vader. Which would be great if not for the addition of those sorts of unnecessary noises. So yeah, because the sound fonts are not as clear-cut as they are in the Defender, and because they include some unnecessary sounds, regardless of the increase in sound quality, I can't give it higher than 8 out of 10. Now, when it comes down to additional features, this is where the Sabervault saber really shines. Because, as I mentioned before, it has the Convertech clip, which the Aegis Saber's Defender was sorely lacking. But it has some other features as well that are pretty neat. So, for example, we have the ability...
Such hatred.
If you want to bypass the unnecessary sounds triggered by the clashing, you could always just
Clash off.
turn the clash off. So you get all of the lightsaber but none of the clashing. So if you just want to swing it around, now you can do so without having to worry about the clash going off. Sabervault sabers have what the Aegis Saber's Defender doesn't, and that is smooth swing. Those of you who remember my Aegis Sabers review will remember that the Aegis Sabers that I got them before Aegis Sabers added smooth swing to their sabers, so as you can see, the sound is reactive, but it's nowhere near as smooth as the smooth swing. But, you know, still functional. And in another piece of flair, the Sabervault saber has this feature.
Motion control on.
It has motion control. Now what does that mean? Well, usually you would have to press the button to turn on a lightsaber. But with motion control, a simple flick of the wrist will do it just fine. And a twist of the wrist will turn it off. Turn it on. And a twist of the wrist turns it off. Which is pretty cool. However, there's a problem. Like, it is very sensitive to movement. Like, when I first discovered the motion control, I was scared because the slightest jerk of my wrist could set it off. And it also got a bit annoying because when I had the motion control on and I was swinging it around, sometimes a motion of the wrist would turn it off. So, a mixed bag, all things considered. But if you're going for that effect where you're turning around and suddenly, then the motion control is pretty useful. But otherwise, with the motion control is pretty cool. You've just got to be careful what you do with it. You never know. If you've got the motion control on, you might accidentally set it off. Case in point, for additional features, I give it props for having more additional features than the Aegis Saber's Defender. However, where it loses points is the little cards that come with the saber. If you remember, the Aegis Saber's Defender comes with these little metal cards giving the instructions. The Sabervault saber kit that I got came with a little cardboard card with a QR code on it that says, "Important, read manual before initial use. Scan the code to access the user manual." Now, is it me or does that sound a little bit inconsiderate? I mean, I guess it's more environmentally friendly than printing out hundreds of little metal cards. But, like, the fact that I need to scan a QR code in order to reach the instruction manual, what if I am unable to scan the QR code? I'm going to need to figure it out on my own, which is a frustrating thing to do. So I'm going to need to give it minus a point for that. The fact that you have to scan a QR code in order to reach the instructions makes it lose points for me. So for additional features, I give the Sabervault saber an 8 out of 10. Final thoughts? A considerable upgrade in some ways. Like the Aegis Saber's Defender will always be my baby, simply because it was my first ever lightsaber. But this one now has a special place in my heart for just how much of an upgrade it is. How good it sounds, how good it looks, how well it handles. The only real complaints that I have about it are the unnecessary sound effects in some of the things, like the Darth Vader sound bites in the Darth Vader sound font, the voice bites and the sound of Luke falling down the stairs. Those have got to go. Otherwise it would be the perfect Darth Vader sound font for this saber. Now, what I have noticed is that in the chassis area there is a little housing for a little memory card. So I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I know enough about saber design to know that usually such would indicate the presence of the ability to customize the sound fonts or add your own sound fonts through a memory card. Now, Sabervault, if you are watching this video, then if you have any advice regarding that, and it is possible to customize the sound fonts, please do let me know, because if so, I would love to customize them a little. I would love to be able to get in there and maybe edit out those Darth Vader voice lines and the sounds of Luke and the what sounds like me deflecting a flock of bats, because I just don't like those sounds in there. If I want to quote Darth Vader, I'll quote him myself, thank you very much. Otherwise, I would love to see if I can't add my own personal sound fonts to the saber. So, Sabervault, if you're watching this video, I invite you to reach out and give me any advice that you can, and I hope you appreciate the review. It was an overall favourable one, if you ask me. You got favourable reviews all around, so there were some slight setbacks, but still, you did pretty good. So if you appreciate the review, then please do reach out, and I would love to hear what you have to say. I would love to hear what possibilities can come from that little memory card setup there. So yeah, reach out and I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have been CJ the Prop Maker, and what do you think about the Sabervault electronics? I would like to hear what you have to say. And if there is a particular lightsaber that you would like to see me review, then please do leave a suggestion in the comments down below. And I will see you in the next one.